Welcome, everybody, to the Soul of Synth-Pop Spotlight Series. I am your host, Jim Kelgard, and with me is my awesome and very, very lovely co-host, Mae De Agua, based there in the great state of Texas. And tonight we are doing episode number 202 here for our second season. And joining us in the spotlight today is an artist that I am extremely excited about, folks, because tonight we're going all the way over to Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and we're going to be having an awesome discussion with Lance of the Greatest Order. So with that, let me welcome my co-host, Mae. How you doing, Mae?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Trying to stay cool.
Right on. And our guest of honor, Lance. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, everyone. Nice to see you. Amazing.
Right on. And right off the bat, Lance, I have to say that is such an impressive music room you got right there. I see the Yamaha DX there over your shoulder, and I see
thank you.
Some of your artwork there in the back.
Development. It's still in early development. I've only lived here about a year, a little over a year, so it's just the start of something that's going to be pretty fantastic, I think.
Right on. And is that a drum kit that I see in the back as well?
It looks like a drum kit, but it's actually a rock band drum kit.
Oh, well, hey, second best thing, right?
Yeah. I had running out of space to store it, so I had to put it in here, so it kind of fit in here a little better.
Right on. Well, Lance, let's let the folks get to know you a little bit. So tell us, just to get started, tell us about where you live there in Toronto, and tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and if you want to give any family details or
Sure.
and just kind of how you got into music. Let's start there.
That's a very long question, but so I currently live in Oshawa, which is just on the outskirts of Toronto, Ontario. I've pretty much been here for the last 30 some years. I went to college in this area. I come from a very, very small town called near Kingston, Ontario, Gananoque. It's actually Gananoque with 1,000 Islands, so it's where we cross over to New York.
Oh, okay.
State over there. So I grew up in a very small town, population 5,000. I started out in a trailer park, really, really tiny, and then eventually made it to the city. So I'm really a small town guy who grew up on the river, fishing and camping and swimming and all that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of an outdoorsy kind of guy. So then I moved to the city, the big city, to go to school. I'm a creative director in an advertising agency, so that's my full-time gig. So that's keeps me busy. I'm still doing that. It takes up a lot of my time, but it's a great career. Work with great people. It's a great. I think creative people tend to have outlets, either artists, painting, music. It all kind of goes hand in hand. So, I basically that's my full-time gig, but I do this in the evenings, and I was years ago I was gigging in the Toronto area, traveling around Canada, doing some shows. As far as how I got into this industry, I'm actually a bass player first, so I started playing I started actually learned I used to be heavy into church. I was a bass player in church, left church, started playing in some smaller, more alternative bands, kind of more along the lines of the Red Hot Chili Peppers and stuff. So I kind of play this flat funk kind of style. So I did that for many years, and then we did put some small albums out. We got on some back then. A lot of the radio stations did compilations. So did a lot of that kind of stuff. Got on a couple of those, and it's opening for some big bands. Played along with like Soundgarden, Smashing Pumpkins, Chili Peppers as well, like on a side stage. But I got to meet some of these people, and so I'm originally a bass player in a band. So when the electronic era for me, when it became more accessible, electronic music, I just latched onto it because I felt like I was just the bass player. I didn't have a voice, I was just the accompaniment with the rest of the band. So it was something that I just latched onto. My buddies helped me get set up on the computer, start playing, start writing, start composing, and then it just kind of took off from there.
Right on. Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say little bit more music background. I think I had spoken to you, Jim, a few years ago, but my father was a bass player in a country band, and he at one of his things, he was on the show Hee Haw.
Oh, nice.
So he was one of the
So
students.
you come by the bass playing honestly then.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so I learned on an upright bass in high school. Like started on a big upright thing. This little skinny guy with these two arms around.
Hmm.
Um, so I started there and then worked my way up.
Now, with Hee Haw, there's always, I mean, that was one of my guilty pleasures, and I'm still proud to admit that I watched Hee Haw all throughout the 70s while I was growing up as a kid. And there are some songs on there that to this day remain iconic, like the
I know, everyone
gloom,
knows. Yeah.
despair, and
Yeah.
agony on me, deep dark depression, excessive misery.
Yeah.
If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no
I
luck
know
at
rock and
all.
roll.
Gloom, despair, and agony on me.
Yeah.
Right?
Amazing, amazing.
Oh.
It's amazing how it stuck with you. As you're singing, I'm like, oh my God.
Yep.
The lyrics are starting to come into my head. I'm like, oh, I totally remember that.
Oh, and Mae, do you remember the other one that was popular from Hee Haw? Oh,
Where are
where are
you
you tonight?
tonight? Why did you
You
go
leave.
and leave me
Leave
alone?
me here all alone.
I searched the world over and thought I found true love. You
You
met
made me
another
love
and
you and
you were
you
gone.
were gone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I will never have a career as a country singer, quite
Yeah.
honestly.
That's
That's
Uh,
so funny.
iconic. I mean, just yeah,
well,
absolutely.
that's awesome, Lance. That's I didn't learn to play the bass until probably about 15 years ago. When I was in a cover band before I started Eminent Soul. There was a new wave '80s cover band called Hot Reagan. That President
Oh yeah.
Reagan. And so I played. I learned how to play bass guitar on a couple of Ramones tunes and some NXS tunes and Billy Idol and stuff like that. So, but were you ever into any of the Canadian artists, like rock artists like Rush or Coney Hatch or Spoons or anything like that?
It's funny. I started off as a rock fan. I was like, as a kid, I was big into Kiss. I was not there wasn't a lot of Canadian artists that I really kind of latched onto. Like there was Russia, obviously, they're incredibly talented. I just was not really into that scene at the time.
Right.
Um, but I ended up liking some more of more of the '80s rock bands that you guys probably wouldn't even know. Like they had a few singles like Honeymoon Suite or
Oh, heck yeah, the Honeymoon Suite.
Honeymoon
Yeah.
Suite or Platinum Blonde was another band that was big
Hmm.
up here.
Yeah.
Uh, like kind of more of the mainstream, rock pop kind of bands. I was more into
Right.
like Brian Adams and all that kind of stuff.
Did you say Brian Adams?
Yeah.
Okay, this interview is over.
I know. He's a great songwriter though, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not, then
Hey,
there's a guy called Corey Hart, which I had
love
spiky
Corey
hair.
Hart. Yep.
All right, yeah.
So I was into that kind of stuff like when I was young, very young. But before then, it was more I was into Boston
Ooh,
and
nice.
like a lot of more Uriah Heep. I listened to Coney Hatch and that too, but I was into like more like Kiss and Styx and Foreigner and
Oh yeah.
like those Journey, those types of bands, right? Like a little more of the mainstream rock bands.
So, little interesting fact about me that not many people know. And of course, everybody knows that synth pop is my greatest passion and my love, right? The very first album I ever bought, going back to 1978, was Kiss Destroyer, the Destroyer album. And I went through a phase from like 1978 to, and I was only like what, 6 or 7 years old at the time. It was crazy, but
Yeah.
I had a schoolmate that absolutely loved Kiss, and he turned me on to their music, and I got all into Kiss. I mean, the action figures, the big, the old Kiss dolls that you had.
Yeah.
There was a
Atomic Blonde.
Yep. there was a
What?
movie that came out that was called Kiss Meets the Phantom in the Park that I just thought it was like the coolest thing. So it's like here you have rock stars that are also almost like superheroes, you know. And so I was into Kiss for quite a while, and I still love listening to Kiss. They're one of my non-synth pop guilty pleasures, I guess
Yeah.
you would say. But yeah, I grew up, in upstate New York, not too far away from where you were in Canada, and
Mhm.
I'm familiar with the Thousand Islands and all that, and I've been to Toronto many a time, particularly when I go to like Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Got the American side, and everybody knows that the best view of the falls is from the Canadian side, right? I've been up to like what's that thing there, the Skylon thing that they
Pilon or
have up
Sky.
there.
Yeah.
Used to love going up on that, and but I have to tell you, Lance, if I'm being perfectly honest, the drivers in Toronto are batshit crazy.
Yep.
Some of the worst drivers. And okay, we're talking. I mean, I've driven in New York City. I've driven in LA. Um, I've never had so many crazy, out
Yeah.
of control drivers that I encountered as I did when I was in Toronto.
Yeah. And it's only gotten worse, I bet, since you've been up here. It's like incredible. The traffic is terrible here. The drivers are awful. Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
But
Right on. So you have a great history with having listened to all that wonderful classic rock when you were growing up, which I'm sure gave you a good sense of, melody and particularly with rhythm, being a bass player. I mean, just that importance of having a really good groove is
yeah.
something that most bass players, I think, gravitate towards. And so how was it then that you transitioned from um, being a bass player and being into stuff like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Boston and Journey uh,
Yeah.
into what eventually I assume became the Greatest Order, right?
Yeah. Like, well, it started like I was a bass player like I said, in a band. And so through university college, I was in a band called Riddle Me This,
Hmm.
which was when the first Batman movie came out. So it was kind of like we latched onto that, the Riddler thing. And so we started playing. I was a bass player in that, and I had a group of buddies that I went to school with. And we started getting some popularity, like I said, and we started getting on some compilations. So we had a bit of radio play, and then like the Brian Adams song, we all kind of got older and started getting married and having kids, and life kind of gets in the way. And then I started to tinkering around with my own. Like I've always had like this old relic here, the DX100. It was like the first. I was in high school and I saved up all my money to get this thing, right? So it was like it meant everything to me. So
Yeah.
learning how to design sounds and how to program a synth and I have no training on keys or anything, so I was all learning everything by ear. And so I loved sound. I just kind of got caught up in different making sounds, noises and melodies and things. And I was like, suddenly I have all this ability that I can transfer onto keys and started composing my own stuff. And so with the band, we were playing around. So I started doing that on the side, and then we split up for a while. And then I just kept going and started making my own stuff. And then I got back into the singer or the drummer for my band formed another band, an electronic band called Entity X.
Hmm.
So they played Toronto area and stuff, a lot of alternative festivals and stuff. So I started playing support keys on that, and I was like really loving it, like really loving that. It just opened up a different world for me to be able to not just think of bass lines, and I can be a drummer, now I can be a lead singer, now I can be a singer. Like I get to that ability landed in my hands, so it just kind of turned me on. The singer then helped me set me up with a PC at the time, and I started just messing around with songs and started writing my own things. And at that time, I was never a singer either. I never very shy, very insecure. I was just the bass player in the background, right? But then it just kind of people started saying, "Oh, you should do more. You got a pretty good voice. Like I'm digging the stuff you're doing." Um, And then I ran into this guy. I was doing, because in my industry, advertising, I do a lot of stuff for commercials and TV and stuff. So I worked with sound in sound booths and working with different production companies. And I met this guy, and he goes, I said, "Oh, I could do some music on the side." And he's like, "Oh, send me some of your stuff." And I sent him some stuff, and he goes, I want to cut a demo with you." And I was like over the moon. Like, I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And so I went to, he had this big chalet up north, and this beautiful studio, and Rush recorded there, recorded an album there and everything. And I was just felt like, man, I'm gonna make it, you know, like.
Right, right, yeah.
um, so we just ended up, we started working on it. I had 3 songs, and he had, I can't even think of his name right now. There's a big Canadian producer that called him while he was there, and he was like, "Oh, you should hear this guy." And I was like, I was just super excited. And then I went away. He ended up having a stroke,
Oh no.
and then uh, everything just died with that. It was like, I'm still in touch with the guy. He's okay. He's doing all right, but he just stopped making music, and I couldn't do it anymore. So it's just, my hopes were all shattered then, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then I went back with the guys, started making music, and I started playing shows with them. Like, we opened for Assemblage 23, and we played a lot of festivals with some, made lots of friends with that kind of stuff. So I just kind of got into it more and started doing more stuff at home, getting more serious, and having a little more confidence in my abilities to sing and to write. And I think everybody goes through that, you know, goes through that discovery. Like, I don't know what my sound is going to be. I don't know where I fit. So you just create, you know, you just create.
Just create. That says it all right there, man.
Yeah.
That's
You
really what it is. Yeah.
just keep writing, keep producing, keep making stuff. And everyone's on this journey to become the better form of who they are, and do the next single and make your next song better than the last. And that's
Yeah.
it.
Right on. So how did you at what point then uh in your progression did you decide to go solo and become the greatest order?
Greatest order.
How did all that come about?
Good question. So I was with the band again. It started to, like, when you're in a band, specifically the Entity X. I was with them, and I was more or less just there to help for live shows. Wasn't involved in any of the writing or
Mhm.
producing of the music. So I was just there for the live show. And I just started to be, it wasn't enough for me. It just, like, I started making my own stuff, and I just got more satisfaction out of it. So I just started doing my own thing on the side. And then there was personal issues going on between members in the band and stuff. So we just kind of separated, and I just said, I need to do this on my own.
Right.
And so I left to do my own, cut my own first CD. Um, and my first CD was a little more, had more guitar work in it, more live drum work in it, and stuff like that. So the guys helped me out with some of that stuff to put the music out.
Mhm.
Which now I don't have hardly any guitar. It's all samples, if that's the case. But so I just, just figured I'm gonna give it a shot, and then I'll just write my own stuff and go from there. Like, the difficult thing is learning. There's a lot to learn, as you guys probably know. Like, the software, it's so complex, and things keep changing so much. And
Right.
at first I was like, I don't want to I just want to make music. I don't want to have to learn how to use compression and how to, do all of that stuff, how to master it and everything like that. But so I would pass it off. I had my first album was mixed by somebody else, and then I started to kind of just get more, little by little, learn more about what it takes to make good music, to produce better music. Because I'm a bit of an audiophile, so it's important to me, to make it sound good.
Right. Well, great.
I think when I think about the voice of Lance Pilon stuck trapped behind a bass guitar, I can't imagine a world with that. Yeah, you've got an amazing voice, and I love your style of singing. And definitely when I hear, some of the covers that you've done, they're just,
Aw,
oh
thank
my
you.
gosh, swoon. I mean, how else can I say it? It's just, you've got an amazing voice, and uh, right up there
Super
with
sweet.
those crooners. So I'm just, yeah, I'm pretty impressed that you found your voice and used it. And but the Gray Disorder, how'd you come up with that name?
Yeah, that again, like I went through a really dark, depressing time in my life, and I went through a divorce, and I was working in the city, working in Toronto, and I just found like the routine was just going to this gray city, going to work, gray buildings, gray people wearing black trench coats, and just the weather it's just, I was depressed. I felt like the world was colorless to me. I just felt like everything had a gray, I was living in a gray world. So the disorder part of it just felt like, I guess, a reflection on my life back then. Like it just felt like the depression, the separation, the world I lived in was routine and it was colorless to me. So I felt that the music, my first album, a lot of the inspiration came from my life, like things that I went through. And so it was just a good way to kind of capture that. The name, The Gray Disorder. It's like this mental sickness or something, kind of.
Okay, so it's not a reference to, getting to a certain age.
No. No.
I feel
Yeah.
like sometimes I'm starting to have a bit of a
Well,
gray disorder, and
I
that's
have a
why.
gray swatch on my beard. That's
Yeah, whatever.
yeah,
I
I know
mean,
who I'm one to talk, right, Lance?
Yeah.
well, I mean, you guys wear it well. Sometimes I think, if a beard would help hide what's going on here, maybe it's not a bad idea. So,
I'm not touching that one, May.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
So, Lance, as May was mentioned just a moment ago, there is one cover that you did a couple years ago, and I have to absolutely call this out because, in my opinion, it is the single best cover I have ever heard of this particular song. And of course, that song is Drive by the Cars.
Yeah.
And I'm a lifelong fan of the Cars. I loved them back in the late 70s into the early 1980s, clear up until 85, 86 or thereabouts when they finally broke up.
Yeah.
And quite obviously, Drive is one of the more popular songs by the Cars. In
Yeah.
fact, I think it was their only number one. I could
Oh,
be wrong
really?
on that, at least in the U.S. anyway. But such an iconic song and such a difficult song for a lot of people to pull off effectively. And absolutely, hats off to you because you just completely knocked this one out of the park. It is absolutely the best version of that song I have ever heard by anybody other than the original band. So,
Uh,
how did the whole idea to cover Drive? How did that come about?
right. Well, obviously it was the passings. So of not Rick Ocasek.
Rick Ocasek?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was inspired. Like I've loved that song. Like I remember my brother had that cassette, and I just wouldn't. There's certain songs that just kind of stick with you, and that one just, when the news hit me, I was like, I need to pay some kind of tribute to that because it was such a good band, and that song, it's one of my favorite songs, and I just felt the need to kind of thank them, I guess, or to just pay homage to that, right?
Yeah.
So that song, and it's so funny because that song I did in one night. Like,
Really?
wrote it or put it together, composed it, sang it, recorded, and it was all done in one night. I was like, how did that happen? You know, like, because that's so rare. In other songs, you're laboring over them for months, right? So that one just kind of, you feel that energy, and you sit, you know, and you're working on something, and then you just get so inspired by it. It just keeps you going, and you can't stop. So it was that kind of an evening for me. It just felt like I was channeling something. I don't know what it was, but it just felt right. Everything felt right. It came together just so quickly, and I need, because I felt the urgency because of the timeliness of his passing, that I wanted to make sure that it was out there, you know, at the time. So yeah, so that song, I just, like I said, I sat down, and I love taking songs that are rock based and trying to make them electronic. You know, that's one of the challenges for me, is to how would I interpret that song? How does, because it's difficult to take a song that's already, like, say, like, you know, like I love Shout by Tears for Fears or something like that, that
Hmm.
it's already amazing, and you're like, I can't go anywhere near that. There's no way I can outdo that, you know. But it's, for me, it's easier if the instrumentation is a little more, less electronic, a little more rock based, because
Right.
then I have the opportunity to kind of reinterpret it, like, more. You know, there's more opportunity there, instead of, I don't want to do the same thing again.
Right.
Because there's a lot of bands like that, even the Howard Jones one, where I'm like, I, I you know, I want to do it justice, but I want to put my spin on it, but it needs to be different enough, but close enough that people recognize the song, all that kind of stuff. You know, so that one in particular, the Drive, like, I still love it. I still listen to it. Go, when I die, the song will be around, and I'm proud of that. It came out. It's here. You know, so
Right.
I'm leaving that behind.
Well, every covers edition show that I do, and I'm doing one next week, as a matter of fact, and your version of Drive is just a staple. I'm going to play it anytime I play an all covers
Appreciate.
broadcast of the Soul of Synth Pop. It's just one of my go-to covers that still to this day, whenever new listeners, I can't begin to tell you how many people have sent me messages saying, "Hey, who was that did that cover of Drive by the Cars? That was amazing." And it's like, that's my boy Lance right there. So,
Aw.
so
Thank you.
props to you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
And with the Hojo one, you did a cover of Howard Jones' "Dream into Action" just about a year or so ago. And correct me if I'm wrong, you actually got the thumbs up from Howard Jones
I
himself on
did.
Twitter for that, didn't you?
Yeah, I can't believe. And then
What was that? What was that like?
I think it's Blitzed magazine had a little write up about it too, and it's incredible. Like, I listened, like, Howard Jones was he started everything for me when it came to electronic music. Like, it was so foreign to me. Like, I was so into the rock stuff that I heard. I think it was What Is Love, I think, that I heard first, and I'm like, wow, this is different. This is cool. Like, I need to seek this out. Then I went and bought the album, and then I went and got Dream into Action. Then I started trying to seek him out, going back to Humans Lib and stuff. And so I was just like, wow, people are actually. I don't know. Maybe it's just where I was in the small town that I didn't have access to the music that we do now. It was going to the record store or watching something. I didn't even have cable, so I didn't even get to see many videos. Like, I think I would listen to shows like Grave New Waves at night, which was like at like midnight, where they were playing these shows, and I put my headphones
Mhm.
on and just kind of find all this electronic stuff, and I'm like, oh my god. You know, I heard a bit of Depeche Mode, like people, but it was like People Are People and stuff that kind of made its way on a little bit of mainstream, and it just, you know, I he just did everything for me. Like, so I want to be this guy, you know. So I was obsessed with him. I had posters of him on my walls, and he got me. I bought this thing, you know, because I figured, you know, I just wanted to be like him, you know. So I did that cover again. It was another one where I didn't want to do what everybody else does, and or do the same thing. So I wanted to put a twist on it, and playing, and I've seen him so many times. I met him a few times, got his autograph, had a bit of a chat with him, and it's just one of those moments where you're like, you go back in time to when I was a kid,
Right.
in my bedroom listening to him on my Sony Walkman kind of thing.
Hmm.
So for him to actually take the time to listen and to say it was pretty damn good, I'm like, wow, like
Yeah.
I'm a real musician now, like
Hmm.
you know, you write music and you produce stuff on your own. You just feel like you're just in your own little world, and then start to see that everybody's just, we're all human, we're all,
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
him to for him to actually listen to it and say it's pretty cool. That was amazing.
That's awesome. I,
Yeah.
I I have to agree with you. Howard Jones is one of the greatest performers I have ever seen. I mean, I've been a fan of his music ever since I first heard it back in about 83 or 84 or thereabouts,
Yeah.
with his Humans Lib album. But um, I've seen him perform live at least 4 or 5 times, and every time is better than the previous time. And I've seen him when he's just doing himself and just the acoustic piano where it's just him,
The unplugged
and
stuff I've seen
and
too.
I've seen him with the full glorious electronic band like on the Transform tour that he did a couple years ago, and that just completely blew my mind. And I've had a chance to meet him I think twice, and absolute sweetheart of a man. Just think the world of him, and
Yeah.
just what a great guy. I've never had Howard Jones give me a thumbs up about my music, but in my case, you may know one of my biggest influences is Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark (OMD),
Yeah.
and I'm very good friends with Paul Humphreys, one of the two founders of the band, and so I did a cover of Enola Gay quite a while back,
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
I wasn't sure because you're never sure what the original band is going to think, especially when you know the band personally, right? And
Yeah.
so I was kind of like sheepishly like, hey Paul, when you get a sec, take a listen. And, it's probably not the greatest thing you've heard, but next time I saw him, he's like, Jim, big thumbs up on that cover of Enola Gay that you did. And so that for me was like that made me feel really
Yeah.
good to have one of my heroes tell me that he thought that I did one of his songs justice. So that was kind of cool to get.
It's incredible. It's incredible feeling.
Definitely, definitely. So let's talk a little bit about some of the amazing original music that you've composed. And there's two tracks in particular that I want to talk about. We'll start with the first one, which is Amber Downside that you
Mm.
recorded last year in 2022.
Yeah.
And it's an absolutely amazing, just real fun to listen to. Probably one of my, if I'm being honest, it's my absolute favorite original that you've composed.
Oh,
Absolutely love it. It was one of my favorite songs of last year, as you know. And
mhm.
one of the things that was unique about it is that you actually collaborated on the songwriting of that with another one of my people who was one of my absolute favorite persons on planet Earth. And of course, that is Magnus Dahlberg of the Swedish synth-pop trio More. So, talk to us for a moment about how Amber Downside came about and how that collaboration with Magnus kind of got started.
Yeah, that's a interesting story. Like it kind of organically happened. It wasn't like, hey, let's do something, but it was like, over the years, like on your show, you get to know the community a bit, right? And you get to have some conversations with people, and you make friendships, and um, you kind of start sharing and connecting. And I've really liked Moore's music. I've always liked Magnus's voice. He's in a deeper register than myself, and so I find that our voices meld together really nicely. But we were just chatting, and he just reached out to me and said, "Hey, what do you think about doing some music together?" And I thought, sure. Like as long like I've never worked, I've had worked with other artists doing remixes and stuff, but never. collaborating, writing music. So let's give it a shot. I've never done this before. And my thing has always been music comes really easy for me, but the lyrics are difficult. I have like a good 30-40 songs just sitting there with nothing, no lyrics to them. And yet I could write a book. I have so many things going on in my life, but I'm such a perfectionist. I guess I'm the kind of person that making music, every song is important and every song is worth the time and effort to put into it. And it's not, I write the music comes easily, but the song sits there because I need something to inspire me to want to write for it. Um, and that's, I labor over lyrics because I don't want it to sound cheesy. I want it to have meaning and have depth to it. And so Magnus was like, well, hey, I he likes to write, and he like, and he doesn't do the music. He doesn't write music that way. So I'm like, well, this sounds like it could be a really great partnership. Let's just give it a shot and see how it goes. So I sent him a bunch of tracks that I'd had sitting around and said, if anything speaks to you, just pick one of them and see how it goes. And Amber Downside was the first song is I love the song. I love this. So then he actually we did some which is incredible in itself. We're working with someone across the globe. I'm in my little studio here in Canada, and he's over in Sweden. Like, I've never been on that side of the world, so it's kind of, and the time difference and everything. So he started sending me some kind of dummy tracks with vocals, and I said, this is really cool. This is really working out. And then I would take it and drop in his ghost vocals and rework the song and then send it back. And then he would do a few more things. And we just kept massaging it a bit. And then he actually recorded recorded his vocals for it. But my understanding is the band at the time, because they were working on an album, they didn't want to have something to interfere with that. So he said, well, be my guest if you want to do the vocals on it, then go ahead. So, but he came up with the lyrics for it. He came up with the melody, in a sense, I guess, the how it's being portrayed in that. And so I kind of felt bad. I felt like, you did all this work and here I am taking the credit for it. But he's like, he was cool with that, and he said that's fine, and then he was, very excited, and he loved how the song turned out, and I was super happy with it. And he's like, just go ahead and release it, and then we'll do another one another time. So that's that. He was super excited when he heard the song, and then Jay did a remix of it, and the I Sunray did a remix of that song, and he did a fantastic job with that as well.
I would have to agree. Another one of my absolute favorite people, Mr. J. Hey.
Yeah, another guy I've never really had a conversation with, but we kind of connected, and he's super sweet, really kind person, super talented, like did a really great interpretation of it, and he turned it around really quickly. So that went well. And then obviously this leads into Sleepwalking, which we had some time apart, and he's like, I want to do another song. I said, okay, and then so I sent him another 3 or 4 tracks, and this one stood out, and he wrote the lyrics for that, and then he insisted that, please, I want to sing on this one. And I said, okay, sure, and that's hard too, right? Like, it's hard. It's hard to let go of something and give it. Like, I really wanted to sing that song, like, so I had to let it go, and but rightfully so, he did such a great job with it, and I got to put my voice in there in the backup a bit on that. So it was just, we're like-minded people, and I feel like we connect really well, like on a spiritual level, I guess, if you want to say. Like, we're just we approach the world and music kind of the same way, and we just go off feeling, and like, I send him stuff. He goes, "This is one's talking to me," and then he gets inspired by that. And he starts, the lyrics just flow out of him. Like I usually put like anyone who, like, you write a song and you don't know what to call it, whatever you put a word down for that song.
That's what New Order does. That's why most of New Order's song titles make absolutely no sense.
Oh yeah,
like True Faith, Bizarre Love Triangle, with those words are never mentioned in the lyrics, but
yeah, yeah.
that's they come up with a working title for the song, and that's what they stick with. So yeah,
And that's funny. I had no idea.
yeah.
So that's what I did. Sleepwalking was the name that I had to that song. Why, I don't know. It just came when it sounded like it. Maybe it was the tempo or whatever it was. So he took it and he wrote the song based upon that title. So, and again, great job. I think he did. I find my production skills of on this song in particular, I find I feel my growth, and I'm really proud of what I've done and where I've come from. So, but this song, I feel like my production is getting better, and I find the production value of that song is really good. And then I had a friend of mine, James DePino, he was under Beta 1. He did the remix on that. He just called me up and said, "Hey," and I've never worked with him. We've been friends for a long time. I know that he's into more house kind of music. So I thought, well, that's cool. There's a different spin on it. I'd love to see what he's going to do with it. Take it and see if it appears or appeals to a different genre of style of music, and see if that goes over well. And he did that again. He did the remix in like a couple of nights, and I was like, man, this is really good. I kind of underestimated.
Yeah, I like that mix. I tend to, only in the past year or two, I've gotten into listening to some progressive and melodic house. And so when I hear a remix that kind of pulls it in that direction, I think it's really cool, because it's, it's bleeding into those genres. And I think
Yeah, you might be getting new listeners or that are appealing to this and then checking you out. So
absolutely.
From a marketing standpoint or whatever, it's also a good thing. You're reaching different people, a different crowd that may be open to hearing the music. So, but again, I was pleasantly surprised with what he did with that remix. And so, as a little insider secret, Magnus and I are putting together an EP. So,
Oh, nice. Oh
yeah,
my gosh, that's exciting.
so nobody knows about it. So, but I've sent him a bunch of songs. So,
We won't tell anyone.
yeah, I know.
But I think you just did.
Yeah. No, so we're working on putting out a little EP, and Amber Downside and Sleepwalking would be included on that, but we're gonna do another 4 songs and just.
Oh, nice.
We're not doing the black light thing, Now we're not.
You're not doing an EP or an album every 3 months?
I don't know how they do that, man.
I don't either. They just blow my mind with how prolific Adam and Brian are. They make us all look bad.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Not that I
Adam
need any
doesn't
help with
sleep.
that, but
Yeah. But I think it's really interesting that you point out that the lyrics for Amber Downside were Magnus, and then you sang them, because I'm trying to really hear in my head that voice of Magnus, which I tease him. I tell him, there's elves. He leaves out the beer for the elves, but I'm just trying to imagine Magnus singing, I just came to feel the noise,
which is like my favorite lyrical line of the last year. Seriously, I just came to feel the noise.
Yeah.
Love that. Love it.
Yeah, it's clever. It's very clever. Like, I don't know how he comes up with he's very, like, his latest Moore's latest single is a cup of coffee.
One more cup of coffee.
Mhm.
One more cup of coffee. Like, I love his storytelling. Like, he paints a nice picture with the lyrics. So that one really hit me. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. Like, I don't foresee us. It's a side project, because I've got an album that I'm trying to get out, but this has suddenly pulled my attention away. But yeah,
Well, it's exciting news. I mean, like I said, you're two of my absolute favorite people on the face of the earth, but you're also two of my favorite artists. I mean, you and Magnus, you said it yourself. You're kind of like two peas in a pod, in like a spiritual sense, and just the way that you kind of view the world. Because I'm friends with Magnus as well, and I'm so happy to see you two guys connecting in such a wonderful creative way, because we're all the richer for the collaboration that you and Magnus have done thus far, and I can't wait now to hear what you guys are working on for these other couple of songs. But yeah, I just absolutely love the vocal work that Magnus does with More, obviously, but also on Sleepwalking. I mean, that's Magnus that's singing, and he's reached a whole nother level of awesome, the way that his vocal delivery is on Sleepwalking. And it's just it's destined right now. I think Sleepwalking is already probably one of my top five, if not top 10 favorite tracks of 2023 thus far.
Wow.
And of course, the One More Cup of Coffee is also up there pretty high as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess you can tell I'm a bit of a fan of More,
Yeah.
and unashamedly so, I must say. But I think that's exciting news to see that you guys are planning on collaborating on an EP together. That's just awesome news. May, what you've got to agree with me on that, right?
Oh, absolutely. I just, ooh, yes. A whole EP. That's like a whole drive to, the clinic or something. So yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I don't think of my drives as distance. It's how many songs am I going to get through in
Oh,
that drive. So I don't mind traffic jams at all. I will sit there and listen to music, and
yeah.
I think
Agreed.
I really need to there was a time it's kind of known that I had written some basically PSAs on the back of my tailgate of my truck. One that actually went viral because the like after San Antonio shut down, like 4 months later, I guess they opened back up stuff. But anyways, I'd been driving because I had to go places. And I had on the back of my tailgate, some of y'all haven't driven in 4 months and it shows. And apparently people took pictures of it. It went viral on a lot of stuff. It was like number 2 on r/funny on Reddit for a while. But one of the things I've always wanted to write on there is, traffic, traffic got you mad, try Synth-Pop. And I think I really need that. And I think, it's a good opportunity to just do hashtag,
I,
Ray
I
the Sorter, hashtag, Eminent Soul, things like that.
I think I saw a bumper sticker down in when I was down in Arizona last year taking care of my dad. There was a bumper sticker that said, "If traffic jams have you down, smoke some weed." I'm like, what an Arizona thing to say, right? Oh, crazy times that we live in.
Sounds very Canadian too, though.
Oh, yeah, okay, well, good to know. So,
I'm not going to say
It's
it's
legal
not
up here,
entirely
so
Texas either.
so Lance, you as far as your let's talk a little bit about some of the technical aspects of your music for just a moment. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you mention one time that you use Reason as one of your main tools? Is that right?
that's it.
And
That's
that would and that's got to make it easy, because I believe that More in at least Magnus, I think they use Reason as well, don't they? I mean, they're Swedish, and Reason is made in Sweden, right?
yeah.
I
You
only
know,
say that I
I don't
say that because I use Reason. I'm a huge
know.
Reason fanatic, and that's pretty much what everything that I do with Eminent Soul that I did with Eminent Soul. Got to speak in the past tense about that, and the stuff I'm doing now with the Secret Space program. I can't shake Reason. I still, especially now that you can do VST3s in it. I mean, I've just hit the ground running and haven't looked back ever since. But what are your thoughts on using that as a platform?
Yeah, Reason is like, oh man, like yeah, it's pretty much everything for me. And it's fast, it's efficient, like efficient, doesn't use up your, like it's not too taxing on your computer. That's the thing that I
Right.
found the most. Like it's very efficient, and speed wise, and just how well it's really easy to use, and the amount of plugins and the amount of things that you can add to it. I started using Reason before it had audio capabilities.
Me too. Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, like version, I don't know what was it, version
Version
2.
3, version 4. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was using it, and then I had to export everything as audio to go into, and I was using Sonar, a program called Sonar for audio stuff, and then before that we were using Cubase, like um, basic Cubase stuff. So it was I started out on a PC, and then I went to a Mac for music. I'm a Mac user anyway, so I
Me
just
too.
yeah, I couldn't handle, like, I had a PC, I had it all worked for music and set up for music, and then I grabbed the mic stand once, and the static went through and blew my motherboard on
Oh,
my computer. So I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. So I use a Mac every day for work, so I've always been a Mac. So it's been really good with Reason for me. Is it's just been, it's just when you need to get something down really quick, an idea down quick, it's really easy. um, and then it's also, it can be easy, and it can be very complex. Like it's
right.
whatever it's a tool, right? But yeah, Die Hard. I'll probably never change. I'll probably never leave that. Leave that software.
The thing that I like about Reason now, I actually went to school for audio engineering and music recording technology and all that. And when you go through some of those big programs in school, they typically teach you on Pro Tools, or some of them you'll use Cubase or Ableton. But I never liked Pro Tools because Pro Tools, aside from Sonar, forgive me, is the most unstable. I mean, Pro Tools would crash on
Yeah,
almost every session I ever did, regardless of how intensive the session was and how many channels and inputs and whatnot I had. And so with Reason, I can probably still, I've been using Reason as my standalone, as my single platform for making music since about 2010 was when I made the full jump into Reason, was about 2010.
mhm,
So about 13 years now. And I can count on one hand the number of times that Reason has seized up and crashed on me. And we're talking probably several thousand hours worth of studio and session work and all that stuff. So Reason, for me, I've been a Reason fan for a long time. I kind of was driven into the arms of Ableton for a little while when
mhm.
Reason was so lacking, and they went for so long not being ported for VST3.
Yeah,
And so I wasn't able to use some of my things like Roland Cloud devices. I wasn't able to use a lot of the great plugins that I really like using are not ported. They're ported for VST3, 64-bit and whatnot.
right.
And Reason, I just wasn't able to do that for a long time. But thankfully, like 2 years ago, Reason is finally in the 21st century, and
Yeah,
so I've been going back into using Reason, and I've just it's for me. I also like it because Pro Tools and Cubase are kind of laid out where if you're already a professional audio engineer or a professional producer, it's kind of laid out with those kind of people in mind. Whereas Reason from the get-go was designed from a musician's standpoint, from a musician's perspective, so that demographically the way everything is situated within Reason is exactly the way that a musician would think of it. Whereas in Pro Tools, it's okay, I got to put on my engineer's hat, now I got to put on my mastering engineer's hat, now I got to put on my so whereas Reason, it's I'm a musician like you first and foremost. I love playing, so Reason was just one of those, excuse me, one of those platforms that just I got into it and I hit the ground running, and I love it. And so anytime I come across a fellow musician whose music I admire like yours, and I find out that they use Reason as well, I'm like, all right, these are my people.
that's good to hear. Like, I know that because it's not. It's one of those. I was almost embarrassed of saying that years ago. Oh, I use
Yeah.
Reason. They're like, oh, you know, like
Oh yes, I get it, and it's let's be honest. Who are the ones that usually say that? It's the Ableton users, it's the Cubase and Pro
yeah,
Tool. The Pro
yeah,
Tools. Oh, you're using a Reason.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
one of you're one of those.
really, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, no, well, and I mean, it's not like there isn't several. I mean, the Beastie Boys used Reason on some of their stuff. Ad Rock,
Yeah,
uh,
heard that.
big fan of Reason. Bon Harris from Nights uh,
Mm,
there's some great Reason stuff out there that he's done. So yeah, hats off to you for
yeah,
for being a Reason user, Lance.
yeah,
Love that.
yeah. It's yeah. Like I said, like I started on that, and I'll always be using that. I think um, it has everything I need, and like again, it's about the music. It's not the tool. That tool allows me to get to that place fast, and
Yeah.
it
And
works
that's
well.
what it's all about, right? You want your music creation tools to inspire you. You want to have that workflow that's going to work as quickly as it can for you.
Yeah,
And like with you, that's what Reason does for me is I just instinctively know where everything is. And my favorite feature with Reason to this day is the mixer because I when I went through school and was learning how to mix and produce music, I learned on an SSL console,
mm,
and it was an SSL 9000 series console, which is what the mixer and Reason is based off of. So,
yeah,
so I just I love how you can really get in there and kind of fine tune your mix on each individual channel, and of course it's got that gorgeous master compression, master bus compression.
yeah,
The make awesome button, some people call it.
yeah.
So yeah, I love it. So I have to ask you then, what are some of your favorite software synth plugins and VSTs?
Oh, good question. Oh man. Um, Let me think here. So I've got, yeah, I'm trying to think. I've purchased a few. I don't. Some of the ones that come with it are fine, but like Maelstrom and all that, the,
Right.
the, the originals, like they've kind of fallen away. When the
Yeah.
Combinator came on board, it was
I love Thor still to this day. Great,
yeah, you could start
great
mixing.
device.
Get some Rob Papin stuff that
Oh yes.
like I've got a synth from him and some of his effects racks and stuff, which are really good. Um, oh, I can't offhand. I can't think of them. I can't.
Do you do any of the Cherry Audio or Arturia stuff?
No,
No.
no, none of that. None of that yet. It's been a
Yeah.
while since I've actually spent some money on a few more synths, but
Well, if you get the chance, check out some of the Cherry Audio stuff. Cherry Audio has just completely, I think, revolutionized the software synthesizer market because they're so high quality. They're really CPU efficient,
mhm,
and the price. I mean, the Cherry Audio version of the Yamaha CS80 is like I think 50 or 60 bucks, whereas the Arturia one is like 200. So,
wow,
and the Cherry Audio one blows the Arturia CS80 out of the water, in my opinion. But
wow,
but the Rob Poppin stuff that you mentioned, I absolutely one of my go-to instruments on probably easy. I'd say probably 70 to 80% of my recordings usually use the Predator
yeah,
synth. I mean, I love it for the basses. I love it for some of the arpeggio stuff that it's got on it. And yeah, one of my favorites. I love the Rob Poppin stuff.
yeah.
Really.
He's the one I use. It's actually called Go To. I think the Go To something, Go To Synth or something
Hmm.
that he
Okay.
has that he put out. Anyway, I've used it a lot. Um, it's usually my go-to synth.
Right on. Well, let's have some fun here. Tell me what are three of your absolute favorite synth pop or electronic albums? So give me your top three or your top five,
Oh God. So
or at least the ones that had like the
yeah,
biggest influence on you.
yeah. Well, obviously, Humans Live was a big one by Howard Jones. It was a
Mhm.
massive one for me. Youthquake by Dead
Dead
or
or,
Alive
Dead or
was
Alive. Oh my gosh,
they're
love
like one of my favorite I don't know, that band, when I heard them, I was just, there was nothing like that. I was just, and still to this day, I love Pete Burns and the whole Dead or Alive thing, right?
Hmm.
So that's a massive one for me. Violator was probably my favorite Depeche Mode album. I listened to that one many times.
Hmm.
Um, was it Sugar Tax was a big one for me. From OMD was good.
OMD. Yeah.
The Pet Shop Boys, Please, was it Please?
Please. Yep. That's their
Yeah,
their first album. Yeah.
that was a fairly big one for me. Um, it's funny because these albums, I didn't discover them till later on in life, so I wasn't fans of these bands when they were in their heyday. Like, I was into rock,
Hmm.
I was playing rock stuff in that era, so I discovered them later on when they were not
Let's
classic.
let's 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 shift it to that. What are some of your all-time favorite rock albums?
Okay. Well, Boston Don't Look Back was a big one for me.
Classic. That's iconic. Yep.
Rock and Roll Over, or Destroyer was my first album purchase as
Ooh,
well.
nice.
Area. Like that one again, like you had said, they're like superheroes for me. It's so hard because I have so much music. I can't even think of it which ones are my favorites. I was a big Billy Idol fan back in the day, and then a lot of even like things like the Eagles,
Right.
and I'm a big classic country person, like
Johnny
Patsy,
Cash,
more like Patsy Cline,
Patsy
Loretta Lynn,
Cline. Okay.
like
Yeah.
that era,
Love Patsy Cline.
And
Yep.
one of my favorites now, it's not, is Patty Griffin. I don't know if you've ever heard of Patty Griffin. She's a folk
Yep. Hmm.
type
Yeah.
artist.
Yep.
Um, so I have such a range of things, but like basically Kiss in Boston for some reason were big for me when I was young. So, but Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over were my mate. Like, I used to go to school with some days when I was a kid with Kiss makeup on my face. I was so obsessed.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's
Are there
awesome.
pictures? Are there pictures of this? This is what I want to know.
I do have pictures. Yeah, I have pictures.
So who were you? Were you dressed up as Ace or Paul
Peter
or
Chris was always
Peter
I was
Chris?
always a
Okay.
Peter Chris fan.
The
Yeah,
cat man. All right.
yeah,
Nice.
Ace was always my favorite, the Star Child. Yeah.
yeah.
Actually, I guess Paul was the Star Child, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Ace was always my favorite for some reason. Gene Simmons always scared me as a kid.
Well, yeah, I
He was because
know.
he was the
Hear
demon,
me
right?
now.
So
All the tongue and the blood
yeah,
and the flames and
yeah,
everything. So,
yeah.
you know,
So May, you said we wanted to talk a little bit about Lance, talk about some other aspects of Lance's life and personality. So I'll turn that portion over to you, and we'll get to know Lance a little bit better as a person.
Sure thing. Well,
personal stuff.
I think there's no denying that the first song that I heard by Lance that I know the greatest order was his Powerless. And oh my goodness, that song, it just, like, again, I can go all girly over his voice, and just like, oh my gosh,
No, you're so sweet.
there's no
Right?
denying.
You're crazy.
Don't want to, like, make you go red, but there's no denying that Lance just oozes sex appeal. Okay, I mean, I am
Yes,
not
yes,
gonna
he
lie.
does. You are
See, there you go. You agree.
Lance. You are shagadelic, my friend.
And
Absolutely.
No,
but
Billy Red.
I also know,
Oh,
I also know, though, from my personal interactions with Lance, that he's an amazing dad, and
oh,
um, there have been things that in our lives, both of us, that I've had the opportunity to turn to Lance and say, "Hey, I'm lost," because as both of us being parents of trans children, it's such a new thing to be
mhm.
dealing with. It's not the same as having gay children. It's a completely new creature. So how first of all, I appreciate the support that, you know, I didn't bring tissues. I really do appreciate the support that Lance provided when I had questions.
No,
And
you're so sweet.
just, and he had told me it's tough and it's new. And if you want to talk about how has this experience influenced your music, your, well, and we know that sometimes this takes time away, and just tell me about
Yeah. Yeah, life can be very I've gone through a lot of challenges in my life. Like it just seems like one thing after another. And like most of you, you guys, I know Jim, you've gone through a lot in the past few years too, right? Like life-changing moments. And my current son Harrison was born Sienna. So I had two girls growing up. And Sienna was always struggling with something. Like it felt like it went through a lot of therapy, a lot of just a lot of anxiety stuff, and we're trying to figure out what it is. And even as a young girl, she dressed as wanted to be a boy, like acted as a tomboy, wanted to wear shorts and like t-shirts and hair cut short, and played hockey, was very athletic and everything. And it uh, it didn't bother me at all. Like I just knew my relationship with my ex-wife it was challenging, because she was a little more old-fashioned, a little closed-minded, not as open as I am. And she dressed her daughter to be the way she wanted her to be, like, like princessy, and wearing the pinks and everything. And I remember Sienna at the time was very much like, when I get older, I'm gonna cut off my breasts. I don't want to be, don't want to be married, and I don't want to, like. And I was like, I don't know. I just felt like whatever you need to do with your life, how you want to express yourself, that's cool with me. And for me at the time, I was second guessing my whole identity too. Like, I was married with a woman, and I came out in my 40s, and got divorced, and trying to figure out who I am. And then to have a daughter with this something similar, like an identity issue, it was hard to see. But at the same time, I've always been very supportive of whoever you need to be. You do that. But as Sienna got older and figured, I was always concerned about making any rash decisions when they're young, because when they're young, they're not mature enough to make big decisions. So I was just, it'll work out. Give her time to figure out who she is, and then when she's ready to figure out who she wants to be, uh, as a parent, that's all that matters. Is you want your kids to be happy and healthy. Who cares if they what they want to be, male, female, non-binary, whatever it is. And it was hard, because I was divorced. I came out. I ended up living with another person. My kids stayed with their mother, and then Sienna became very suicidal. Um, there was 3 attempts at suicide. Very difficult, because in this world, they're all in this very social world, right? So the challenges that they face and the pressures that they face, I didn't have those. And as parents, we don't. It's hard for us to really put ourselves in their position. Um, so it was really hard for me to see that, and then for Sienna to be so serious as to not want to be here anymore. It was very challenging. And at the same time, this is all going on, and to tie it into music, it's very difficult to be expressive and create, and when your life is when the priority is your family, right?
Always, yeah,
Yeah, like family comes first, and it's
always.
just hard. So it's been challenging for me, because it seems like it's one thing after another, with deaths in the family, and suicide attempts and everything. Um, and then so my son moved in with me, or sorry, my daughter moved in with me at the time, and then I was there for the breast removal, the hysterectomy, all of that stuff, and his mother wanted nothing to do with him. Like she mourned the loss of her daughter, so it was very hard for someone. It's hard to watch your child, like, you know how your mother is the most important thing to you as a child. Like I find there's a special bond between mother and child that a father doesn't have. And when your mother shuns you she felt like nobody wanted her, and so she moved in with me, and it was still, we're going through therapy, all these things, and then it became again another a few attempts at suicide, and he didn't get along with my partner, so he didn't feel like he fit anywhere, and needed lost his mother, lost, then didn't feel welcome at home with me because of my partner, and then to get along, and it changed my relationship anyway. But it was very hard. It was very, very hard to watch your child. And I was always afraid, in this day and age, people are quick to jump into like plastic surgeries and do all these things that you can't really replace. You can't go back. It's a big deal. But I'm so happy where he is now. Like he's finally got to a place in his life where he's happy. He feels like there's value in his life. He's got a job. He's a super sweet person, and it was just important for me to be there for all of that, and he had nobody, so I'm like his best friend, so. But he's finally reconnected with his mother, and so she's very apologetic, and she's coming around, and I said, just give her some time. She'll see that you're still the same person, and everything will be fine, and she'll get over it. And
Regardless, it's still her child, right? I mean, that's
yeah,
I think the angle that I would approach it from,
yeah,
if it were me. But I think that your son is so fortunate to have a father like you. I mean, truly, you just have that magnetism that people are drawn to, because you have such that you truly do have a pure heart, Lance. And the short amount of time that I've been able to get to know you, and even though we've never met in person,
yeah,
I just know that you're a person who is truly sincere. You've got a kind, good, compassionate heart, and I can tell that you're a man who loves his children, um, unconditionally and completely.
Fiercely.
yeah,
Yeah, fiercely. And yeah, I'm
And
really
that,
glad to hear that mom has they've reconnected, because the last time I had really talked to you
yeah,
about it, that wasn't the case. And that just makes me very happy to hear, because I can't imagine as a mother rejecting my children because they're not who I thought they would be. And that's absolutely, I
yeah,
know, I believe in a creator. I believe in a creator who gave me my children. Um, and I believe that I was given my children because I was being entrusted with them, and to be able to handle whatever life was going to throw at us. And so yeah, I'm really glad to hear that.
thank you. Yeah, like it just puts me at ease a bit more, and I just like for the first time in my life, like I feel optimistic for him and his future. And he like it's hard, it's social, it's weird because he went through this during COVID, and so for us to get any kind of help or anything, it was impossible to get surgeries. It was hard to get any kind of assistance, chemically and mentally, like just to get any kind of advice. And it was so new that it's hard to find people who know what it's all about, right? And if you look at it now, and just over in the past 3 years, how
Yeah,
quickly being
I
transgender is more in the forefront. It's all over TV, and people are, even my parents were like, they don't understand everything, but they accepted my son with open arms, and like, who cares? And it's like, we all love you, it doesn't matter. And I've always been of the mind that we're all made up of male and female genetics. Like, we're all made up of some mix of, some are a little more feminine, some are more masculine.
I I completely agree. I mean, take me for instance. I'm undeniably a man, undeniably heterosexual. I love
Yeah,
the female body. I love my wife's body,
yeah.
especially.
Make sure you
My
put that
wife
in
is probably going to
there.
throw something at me here in just a minute, but but I'm also, I mean, I played football. I was a very, masculine kind of guy, but I also love to cook. I love to go shopping. I love talking, Downton Abbey is one of my absolute favorite TV shows, but I also like, watching, John Wick movies, and I like watching, you know,
Yeah.
old Clint Eastwood movies, Dirty Harry movies, Die Hard, but, you know, um, I don't think there's anything wrong being a masculine or an effeminate man. I think what ultimately comes down, exactly as you said it, Lance, I think we are all inherently born with certain sensitivities, and it's okay to embrace whatever that sensitivity happens to be. I've got two brothers, and both of them are nowheres near as sensitive on some things I think that I am, and maybe that's because I'm the youngest in the family. They always
Maybe.
say that the baby in the family is always the most sensitive, right?
Yeah.
Or the most spoiled. But I think you hit it right on the head, at least from the standpoint of what it's like the role of being the parent is to love, as you said, May, fiercely and unconditionally, regardless of what choice or whatever path your children decide to take. That's kind of their responsibility. It's like an eternal responsibility that a parent has, is to love and accept their children for who they are, and without conditions. And anytime I see parents that go through the situations that both of you do, having trans children, I can't even begin to imagine what it must be like to have the world that just simply doesn't understand, and oftentimes I would imagine don't even want to try to understand what it is that you, let alone your children, are going through. And even though it's something that I can't reconcile with my spiritual beliefs, it still, for me, comes down to, I'm commanded by God to love one another, love my neighbor, love my brothers and sisters. And are we not all spiritual brothers and sisters, regardless of our race, regardless of our orientation, regardless of whatever? We are all still, in the broader, greater sense, we are all family. We are all brothers and sisters. And I think our world is a much better place because we have the kind of souls like you, Lance, that are just that really truly get it, if that makes any sense. And it's one of the many reasons why I just absolutely look up to you and
No.
respect you. And I've got so much appreciation for the light that you've brought into my life as not only an artist, but also just in the short time that I've had a chance to get to know you as a person. And I cannot repay that enough, and I cannot thank you enough for being the awesome soul that you are. So to that,
Oh man,
thank you.
so kind of you.
All of that Jim said, and
Yeah.
especially yes, for answering questions for me and reassuring me that things that I was experiencing with my child were like, okay, that's normal. Okay. Because nobody prepared me for the second adolescence,
Yeah, that's
with
true.
hormone replacement therapy.
That's true too. Yeah,
And it's frightening. And and so yeah, I do
it
really
is.
appreciate so much
And how
your
do you,
light. Absolutely.
I'm honored, to be honest. Like, you both, there's something special about both you guys. Like, there's just, and when you connect with someone, like, you're just real. There's nothing. And I like to surround myself with people of similar kind, right? Like, I'm just doing what I need to do. I'm just being the person that I need to be, to have a good life. You know, like to I don't want to carry burdens. I don't want to have hatred. I don't want to. I believe in treating people the way I wanted to be treated. Like, you know, everyone wants to be loved and accepted and
Right.
admired and all of that. And it's just life is so short, and the older you get, you see how quickly it goes by.
Mhm.
And so
So true. So true.
it's like I can't believe it. Like my parents are aging, you know, and that's gonna be a very big challenge for me when I lose my parents. And I was just at our funeral last night, for another friend of mine, and it's like, what's going on? That's you know, I wrote that song, about of the way the world is, like the world doesn't care. I wrote that song because of the same. I was going through this phase of how I'm not relevant anymore. Like all the musicians, all the talent, all the people that I cared about are slipping away, and everything is catered to this younger world. And sometimes it just I feel like, is anyone else feeling this loss? Like this feeling like, do I belong in this world anymore, or like, do I matter anymore? Like the stuff
I
that I loved, like you think it's going to go on forever, and then you're watching the news, and and you see someone you haven't seen in ages, and then you look at how much they've aged, and you're like, oh my god,
yeah.
am I that old? Like, like what's going on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Celebrating all these 40th anniversary of albums and stuff. And I'm like, no, no.
I
I don't
know.
know
I
when y'all
I
got that
I
old. That's not me, right?
the first time I cried when one of my heroes died, one of my music heroes died, was honestly Pete Burns. I had such an admiration for Pete Burns.
Mhm.
And when I got the news that he died, and then like not even a year later or so, Steve Coy passed away as well.
Yeah.
And then in that same space of time, we also lost George Michael on Christmas Day of all things. I mean, I grew up. I mean, I wanted to be George Michael for a long time. If there was ever a man I ever would have switched teams for, that probably
Yeah.
would have been George Michael. Um, and I would have had to fight my mother for
Yeah. Yeah.
because my mother was thought that George Michael was an attractive man, and I'd have to fight my wife for him as well, probably my daughter too. But
Yeah.
losing George Michael and then also Mark Hollis of Talk Talk, another band that I absolutely love and
Yeah.
adore, and then losing Steve Bronski and Larry from Bronski Beat, uh, Prince, and
Yeah.
then last year losing Andy Fletcher of Depeche Mode.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I never would have thought that Depeche Mode would have lost one of their members this early, if there is such a thing, losing somebody early. Um, and it's just a reminder of, like you said, how time flies so fast. And that's why whenever I do my shows and I try to encourage people, look, if any of these legacy artists ever come on tour and come to your city to play a show, go see them, because you honestly don't know, it may be the last time you get to see some of these people,
Yeah.
because our music heroes from the 70s and 80s, they're not getting any younger, just as we're not getting any younger.
Yeah.
And it's and of course I've lost both of my parents in the space of the last 18 months. And
Mm.
that's something that really you think it's something you can prepare for. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how well prepared you think you are. When you lose a parent, it hits you in ways you can't prepare for. There are some things you can,
Yeah.
mentally and emotionally try to prepare yourself for, but when you're actually confronted in that moment, one of the hardest things for me is there are still times, like when my youngest son, my junior namesake, just a few weeks ago, got his driver's license. And instinctively, I picked up my phone and started dialing my dad's phone number.
Ooh.
And, it's little things like that. And my dad, my dad passed away in this last November, and there's been a number of times where I've had moments like that where I have, without even giving it a second thought, I'm just going into my phone and I'm hitting phone number for my dad. And so it's little things like that. But it's for me, it all comes together in the sense that it's so important to do everything that we can to strengthen those bonds and those relationships that we have with our family first and foremost, is from a parent to child, um, child to parent, and of course if you have siblings, the same kind of thing. um, but also to draw closer to the people who make you feel good about yourself, the people who, if they're the right kind of people, do what they can to lift you up and make you a better person. um, and that's precisely why I gravitate towards people like you, May, and you,
Mm.
Lance, because you're just you both have that kind of spirit that just is so uplifting and welcoming, and it makes me feel lighter and makes me feel better just being able to talk to you. And in your case, Lance, when I listen to your music, it's like listening to an old friend, truly. And I can't put a price tag on that.
Thank you.
And it's really, something something that gets me right here every time. And I can't thank you enough for just being the great example of a human being that you are. And that's something that I always get into um, debates with about some of my the people in my church. It's like, you want to focus on being a good, be a good Catholic, be a good Latter-day Saint, be a good Methodist, be a good Jew, be a good Muslim. And that's not at all the way that I approach it. I believe focus first and foremost on just simply being a good person, being a good human being, because then that will make you a better, whatever, a better, heck, even a better atheist, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything
Just
else will just fall into place.
Yeah.
exactly. And that's what I've done with my kids. And I'm so proud of all three of my children. I think they got a lot of their better qualities from their mother. But it's just such a good thing to know when you've got that relationship with your children.
Mm.
And I know that you as a father would do anything for your children. And May, I'm sure you as a
Mhm.
mother would do the same. You'd lay down your life in a heartbeat for them.
No, I
And
will strangle somebody with my pride flag if I need to.
there you go. Well, and you're in Texas, so I assume you're probably going to be packing heat as well. So
I'm really still looking for a Gonzalez flag, is the cannon, come and take
right,
it, on
right
a rainbow field. I may have to design it myself, but
there,
so yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, again, May and Lance, thank you so much for taking the time to have this wonderful conversation. Lance, it was so good to get to know a little bit more background about how the Great Disorder came to be, and you've given us some great news to be excited about in regards to that EP that you're working on with Magnus. And
Yeah.
I will definitely be keeping my eyes and ears out for that. And anything else exciting that you've got coming up on the horizon that you want to tell us about?
Well, like I had said, like I was before the Magnus thing happened, I've been working on my own full release CD. So I've got like 12 songs kind of under like that are underway, like different stages. So whenever I can get time to get that out, like I want to, again, I'm a perfectionist. I want every song to mean something, everything. So it always takes me longer to get stuff out there because I have a busy life. So that's one thing that I'm looking forward to. I've had lots of people asking me, wanting me to play live with them. Like, there's a lot of great bands up here, like like Church of Trees and um, Honeybeard. Like, there's a lot of like acts that are like, "Come on, we gotta go out and play and stuff." And I'm like, I've never. It's not that I don't want to. It's just I've never been a front guy. I've always been the bass. I've been in the back of the band, like so, and I always have an amazing time. And it's just the stress of having my own show. I don't. It's the lights could go wrong, the technical stuff, and all of that, right? So it gets me all.
Well, we'll just have to fly Magnus out to Toronto
Yeah.
and the two of you guys can do a show, and I'll play synthesizers for you, right?
Oh, that's
Can,
fantastic.
can we
idea.
plan for like about next May or so? Because I'm supposed to be going up there.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Next
and
May. So
I'm actually coming back to New York in October, and I'm going to be up in the Buffalo area, so I'll have to see if I can get my passport renewed and maybe see about hooking up and coming to see you there in Toronto if I have the time to
That
do
would
so.
be so amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would love that. I would love that.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's really the only thing is we're trying to get a full CD out on my own, and I want to do it upright. I want to, give it the time it deserves. So once the Magnus EP is done, that'll be the next thing that I'll be working on. It's funny how like I started with a full release when I started making music, and then it's just been single, 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 and everybody's like, when are you gonna put an album out? Like, and it's one of those things where like I don't know, because I find people don't consume albums like they used to. Like they're
Yeah.
more,
It's more of a singles and EP driven market lately. And
it is.
that's been a trend for probably the last 10 years, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
Really.
and so I kind of like that road in the sense that it gives me time to do each song its justice and put it out and kind of stay on top of someone's mind. Otherwise, it'll take me too long to put an album out, and people will just forget who I am anyway. So
Right.
that's been working for me, and I'm still have the bug to I want to do some more covers again. So
Cool.
some of those are in the works as well.
Right on.
But
Well,
yeah.
awesome. Any last words, parting words, May?
well, I mean, he said more covers, and I just, when Lance puts his voice, there's just something different about covers that are just more sultry and more swoony. We're just gonna keep sticking with the word swoony. And
You're so
yeah,
sweet.
I just
Send me some recos, some songs that you think that my
oh,
voice would
mm,
suit,
you
or
know what? Yeah, start thinking about that. And we were talking about covers and doing electronic covers of rock songs. Um, Recently, I was just thinking about so many of the, because we see a lot of Texas country, Oklahoma red dirt bands, and I love hearing country covers of traditionally
uh,
rock pop songs, and it's just so great. So I love mixing that up, and I love
yeah,
hearing people do that. So oh yeah, I'm sure I'll have some coming to mind.
yeah. Like I'm open for some
If if
suggestions.
if you want to cover any Kiss tunes, let me know, man.
Yeah,
I'd if you'd ever be up for a collaboration with, some. So, I
yeah.
mean, you want to talk about a guy who's not comfortable being a lead singer? I never
Oh, really?
wanted to be the lead singer of Eminent Soul, but
Mm,
we just couldn't find one here in the local area. And when I'm on stage, I am happiest, which is why I'm loving being in this new cover band that I'm in, because I get to just simply hide behind my synthesizers. I've got all these beautiful Roland synthesizers that I can hide behind and just do some occasional backing vocals, and that to me that's a dream job for me. I don't like being out front where I'm exposed to everybody and it's my
right,
job to, it's yeah, different kind of personality to be a lead singer that I was never comfortable being in
right.
that role. So
I
I can
think I'd
definitely
love.
relate.
I think I'd like to be the lead guy, but I don't want to be playing and worrying about all the stuff, like all the technical that comes with it. If someone looks after that for me, put me in front of the mic. I'll sing.
Well, like I said, if you ever need a synth
Yeah,
player,
yeah,
I ain't too
definitely,
shabby.
definitely.
Right on. Well, Lance, thank you again so much. We appreciate you. We truly love you, and we are just so grateful for you taking the time for letting us all get to know you a little bit better. And we cannot wait to hear what some of the new stuff that you've got going on. And uh, people that want to find your music, is it thegreatesorder.bandcamp.com or greatesorder.bandcamp.com?
The greatest order.
Thegreatesorder.bandcamp.com.
Not
And
not the greatest order, which I've heard the greatest order.
oh yes,
Oh my goodness.
that's okay. I still have people that in Europe that call my show the synth of soul pop.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
Awesome.
English is such a silly language, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right on. And of course,
Thank you
people can
so much.
also, yeah, oh, you're so welcome. And people can also find your music on like iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, and whatnot.
That's
So
right.
please, folks, when you get the chance, get out there, listen to The Greatest Order. His most recent and current single is called Sleepwalking and features the wonderful lead vocals of Magnus Dahlberg of the Swedish synth pop trio More. But Lance has got a fantastic back catalog of songs. Again, I highly recommend you check out Drive and Dream into Action and Powerless and Amber Downside. You if you've not listened to The Greatest Order yet, you are missing out. Get started and get on that today. And with that, Lance, again, thank you. Mae, thank you. And we will see you folks next time if I can figure out how to stop this silly contraption here.